This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Sports Legends of the Carolinas. I'm your host, Scott Fowler, sports columnist for the Charlotte Observer, where I've worked since 1994. And as always in this podcast, I'm seeking out some of my very favorite sports legends and asking them to tell the stories behind their rise to iconic status. In this episode, we're back inside Bank of America Stadium, home of the Carolina Panthers, and we're thrilled to be seated across from Luke Kuechly, the extraordinary former Panthers linebacker, for our 2024 season finale. I've been working on landing this interview for a long time, and now we're finally going to get to talk to the beloved player whom everyone in the home stands always knew as Luke. Drafted number 9 overall out of Boston College by the Panthers in 2012, Kuechly had a remarkable 8-year NFL career. He was the AP's Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2012, the AP's Defensive Player of the Year in 2013, and helped lead the Panthers to the Super Bowl in 2015. He's now a candidate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and most expect it's only a matter of time before Luke Kuechly is inducted. After retiring early at the age of 28, Kuechly has now become an essential part of the Panthers radio broadcast team. Next, on Sports Legends of the Carolinas, it's Luke Kuechly.
Luke, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
This is going to be fun. Thank you for doing this. Let's just get right to it. So tell me how you first got started playing football.
Oh man, my first year playing football was in 4th grade at the St. Xavier Golden Bears. So where I grew up, you played 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th grade through the school you played for or the school you went to. So it was St. Xavier was a local Catholic school, and then Our Lady of the Sacred Heart is where I went to school. And then we had, I think St. Vincent was the 3rd school that we played with. So it was a combination of those 3 schools that played on 3rd and 4th, and then 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th all the way up. So my first year was in 4th grade for the St. Xavier Golden Bears. Kevin Harris was my coach. And Kevin was cool because he came to a game at every level I played at. So he came to, obviously he coached me in grade school. He was a Moeller guy. I was a St. X guy. Obviously the Cincinnati Catholic all-boys schools had the rivalries. Moeller was our big rival. His kids went to Moeller. So he saw me play in high school, came to a game in Boston College, and then actually came down here for a game in Charlotte. So 4th grade was my first year playing, and Kevin Harris was my first coach, and he saw me play at all levels of football.
Did he realize what he had there? What position did he play at?
This was my first year playing, so what did I play? I played fullback. I was primary blocker, and then I played linebacker my first year in 4th grade. So I was a linebacker, and I was the backup fullback. Kevin Chase was our starting fullback. He played on the team the 3rd grade year. So Coach Harris knew Kevin, big stud, good fullback. He was our fullback, and then I would come in and spell Kevin whenever he needed a break. Kevin Chase.
But you started at linebacker,
we had a good squad. I can really see all those guys' faces from back then. Ben Schneider and Will McClanahan. It was Will or Patrick. There's brothers. So.
Well, did you love it from the beginning?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I always wanted.
What did you love about it so early?
I loved the team aspect of it. I loved the physicality aspect. I think I loved it because I grew up watching football, and I always wanted to be like the guys that you grew up watching. I loved Notre Dame as a kid, and I would always watch those games on Saturdays, and then obviously the Bengals on Sundays. And from being a little kid to remembering it, watching football to 4th grade, I was so excited to have the opportunity to go play football finally. It seemed like it had been forever before I was allowed to play, but I think that was a good place for me to start.
And tell me about growing up and your parents and, just your family as well. I know you have brothers.
Yeah. So I have 2 brothers. I have an older brother who's 18 months older than me. That's John. John was in the grade ahead of me. So every other year, John and I played on the same team.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
when I was in fourth grade, John was in fifth. So he played on a different team. As he moved up, I moved in. I was a young guy. So John and I played sports together a lot. We'd always play on the same basketball team, played lacrosse, played football. And then Henry is 7 years younger than I am. He was a basketball player. And then my parents both grew up in Cincinnati, Tom and Eileen. And poor Henry got drugged to all kinds of games. Every single game you can think of. There's so many pictures of him at games, sitting in chairs. He was friends with all the other people's brothers,
the
and
little
parents.
brothers.
Yeah, there's Henry, and no, he was a trooper coming to all those games. But my parents were great. They were so supportive of really everything that we did, whether it was sports or school or stuff off the field or out of the classroom. And they loved coming up to Boston for games. They were pretty much at all of them. And then down here in Carolina, they were at pretty much every home game, and then would travel to the occasional away game. But they loved. They actually sat right over there in 346. So it's funny.
Nice.
Yeah, right behind the bench
from here. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom loved sitting there because she could see us run out of the tunnel, and then they were right behind the bench. So if you ever needed to get a little tape job on the training table, it was right in direct line with their seat. So you always got to make sure if you come off the field, you give your mom a thumbs up. I know exactly where they sat. So, but they were fantastic. I think they loved.
Were they athletes too?
My dad played soccer in college.
Okay.
And my mom was a really good basketball player in high school, very active. I was blessed that I had two parents that my dad was a super competitive soccer player. I think a lot of that competitiveness and real competitiveness comes from my dad. And it was a great combination of those two.
And so you went to Catholic schools, went to a Catholic high school. Would Notre Dame have been the dream?
So when I was growing up, my grandparents actually met on a trip up to South Bend for a Notre Dame game. So when I was growing up, my grandpa was a huge Notre Dame fan. He Blue and Gold, the little magazine. I had pictures or posters in my bedroom growing up. Play Like a Champion, Ryan Grant, the running back. And then I was a little skinny kid in high school, and I didn't grow until late. And I would have loved, when I was young, I would have loved to have gone to Notre Dame, and it just didn't quite work out. But I ended up at BC, and they were our big rival. I loved my time at BC though. But growing up in Cincinnati, Notre Dame is like everyone loves Notre Dame.
So you were recruited. I was reading somewhere about a 3-star recruit or something. Does that sound about right? Mm-hmm. You were recruited. It wasn't like you weren't recruited by anybody, not like a Steph Curry type situation, but you also weren't a 5-star recruit. So where were ultimately your choices?
So I looked at my final, I think ended up being 4: Stanford, Duke, Virginia, and then Boston College. Okay. So
all ACC schools now.
Yeah. Right. That was weird. Stanford and Cal, but not the goal, but what my dad told me, which was really good advice. It's kind of funny, but he said, go somewhere that you can't get into without football. So I wasn't getting in I probably wouldn't have gotten any of those schools, to tell you the truth. Stanford, no. BC, no. Virginia, no. Definitely not Duke. Yeah. So that was kind of the goal was, hey, I need to go somewhere to get a great education. In your mind, you're like, advice. Yeah. I'd love to be there for 5 years, get an MBA for free, and play at a great school. So
didn't work out that way, though.
No, a little different.
Intercepted, Kuechly. And Kuechly with the stiff arm. Kuechly still on his feet. Touchdown, Kuechly. You are Superman, Luke.
You just played 3 straight years.
Correct.
Maybe people nationally didn't always know how to pronounce your name at that point, but you were an All-American. You had made a big splash already. I was going to ask you about the name thing, though, because when you came down here, people are like, how do you say that? Kuechly, what's that name? Mm-hmm. How often has that come up throughout your life? And what is the origin of that name?
It's a German last name. You would get it. I never got it that bad, though, because I always had an older brother in school.
Oh, right. He took it.
Yeah. And then when we got to high school, my grandpa went to the high school. My dad went there. My uncle went there. And then John, my older brother, went there. So by the time I got there, they kind of
Another Kuechly.
So anything that started in K and ended in an LY is you kind of responded too young.
How about down here once you got to Charlotte? You were the first here.
I don't really recall it being bad, because down here I don't really recall people calling me by my last name. Everyone just calls you, hey, Luke.
Yeah, true.
So, and then, the PA announcer and all them, they would obviously say it correctly. And so, yeah.
So you came a year after Cam here, 2012. Tell me about, as a rookie, there were some studs on that team for sure. But how did you sort of integrate yourself into that team, and who were the leaders on that team?
Well, you look back on that team, the leaders, I think the captains that year were obviously Smitty, Jordan. We had Beast and Thomas. Yeah. I don't know if these guys were all captains, but you get the idea. Olsen, Khalil, Charles. Those were like the dudes that I really remember. And then we had, oh my gosh, those guys. Captain Munderland was here. I loved playing with him. Charles Godfrey was a great safety, but when you look at it, I'm trying to go through the locker room now. It was Jordan and Ryan up front, Greg outside, Steve, and then Cam was still young. And then on defense up front, Chuck and Thomas. And then we had like Chris Gamble was an older guy, Charles Godfrey. Those were, and then in my room it was Thomas Beast, James Anderson, and then the one guy that was great was Jordan Sen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do you remember him?
Yeah.
So when I got here, it was a busy linebacker room, because obviously Beast was coming off a great year, but he was coming off I think he had an Achilles. He was coming off an Achilles. Thomas was coming off his knee. James had just had a fantastic season the year before, had 1 million tackles, playing really well, and then I was like the fourth guy. So you try to find a way to make it work, but I think for me, what was super helpful were the older guys were all great. Thomas and Beast and James are awesome, and then Ryan and Greg really helped me out, took me under their wing. And for me, it was, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to learn my job. And when my opportunities come, I'm going to try to make the most of them. And the team was very patient with me. The first game we played was in Tampa, and it was bad. It was bad. Then we came back here, we played, I think week 2 was the Saints at home. I didn't play a ton because we had a weird kind of combination of guys. So Beast played every snap. I think James.
And were you playing outside at this point?
I was playing outside. Yeah. So when I got here, my first time playing was Will, played weak side backer. Beast played inside. In base, when we had 3 backers on the field, James played the Sam backer. And then when we went nickel, Cap came in, I came out. We had nickel, and I think that was James and Beast. And then we had another package called Buffalo. James would come out and Thomas would go in. So it was like revolving door early on in my career. But I think the thing that helped me a lot was the defense was set up for linebackers with McD and all those guys. The room was fantastic, and they were very helpful and were very patient with me and allowed me to kind of figure it out. Kind of not on my terms, sounds bad, but they were very patient with me early on.
We'll be back right after this.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Welcome back.
When do you think y'all turned a corner as a team? We'll get into 2015 when you made the Super Bowl, but when do you think that happened?
I thought, 2011 was Cam's first year, Ron's first year. 2012, my first year, struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. We lost some close games. Remember we had a stretch at the end of the season here where we won a couple games in a row. We beat Atlanta when they were hot. We beat Oakland. We beat then we beat the Saints the last game of the season. So I don't remember exactly the end of that season, but we kind of got a little bit hot and started winning some games.
In fact, saved Ron Rivera's job, I think, because Jerry Richardson, what we reported at the time, was wondering what to do, and then he said, "We're bringing him back for year 3."
Yeah.
But it took 6 days after the season to make that decision. That's exactly the stretch you're talking about, I think.
And it was also super interesting too, because we played really well at the end of the season. 2013 comes around. We opened up with Seattle. We lost to Seattle at the end of the game. We were driving down the score. We just weren't able to get it in, and then we couldn't get that's what killed us. We couldn't get a stop on defense. They were on that end of the field. Russ completed the ball. I remember the play till right now of what we called, what the play was. Russ completed a ball over the middle of the field, kind of ended the game. I think we were like 1-3, and it was kind of like, all right, like we better start winning some football games, or else like they could make a change quickly. I remember we went up to Minnesota. It's when they had Adrian Peterson. They were rolling, and it was in the Dome. And I remember Jordan Gross gave this pregame speech. Usually pregame speeches are like, come on. Like, you heard one, you've heard them all. But he gave this speech, and the more he talked, the more I think guys were like, not that guys weren't bought in, but he really spoke to kind of everybody in the locker room and got everybody super engaged and into it. And we went out and beat them. And then we won, I think we won like 8 or 9 in a row. We lost to the Saints in the Dome. We had a week off. We played beat the Jets, I think, came back, and then played them on that real rainy game and beat them.
Oh, yeah.
And I think to kind of answer your question, that 2013 season started 1-3. Jordan gave that speech against the Vikings, and then that's where that team, I think, really started to take off.
And really, for much of the teams, then you guys were a really good team. Made the playoffs. People forget now, but made the playoffs 4 out of 5 years. And so I want to ask you about some of your teammates and just your personal relationship with some of these high-profile guys that were your friends, your colleagues. Let's start with Thomas Davis, your linebacker teammate.
Yeah, Thomas was great. I could tell stories about Thomas all day. I think my first interaction with Thomas was, I think it was maybe the day. No, it wasn't right when I got drafted. I want to say that it was the first time I was here, when I got here for OTAs or whatever it was, and I was in the linebacker room with Warren Beelan, who was our linebacker coach then. And Thomas came in and said, "Hey, I'm Thomas Davis. Here's my phone number. If you need anything, let me know." And so I put it in my phone, and I'm like, I don't know how this works. Like, am I allowed to talk to him? And and ever since then, he's been the best as far as just watching a guy. This is strictly from the football perspective, but watching a guy and how he approaches practice, meetings, how he played in the game, how he led, how he treated teammates, his relationship with teammates. And I mean, obviously his toughness was remarkable. Obviously the Super Bowl year, we broke his arm in half in the NFC Championship game. He has surgery the next day, and then 2 weeks later plays in the Super Bowl. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and then
can't believe that.
The 3 ACLs, but watching how he, the competitiveness and on the field and at practice and off-season workouts. But what I thought was really good was what he was able to do relationship-wise with guys on the team, and understanding that everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody has different things going on. And once you realize that and have the ability to form relationships with those guys, the more you can get out of them. And I think if you don't know the guy and you don't care about the guy and you don't personally invest in them, when they're struggling from the outside, you can't go figure out what's wrong because you haven't formed that relationship. So that's where I think Thomas, among other things, excelled really well, was his ability to connect with guys, get the most out of them, and when there was something wrong with them, he had the time in the bank with the ability to go talk to those guys.
When you were a rookie, didn't you somehow end up at a dinner with Cam and Michael Jordan? Is that and what was that like? And how did that happen?
So when I got drafted, that was a Thursday night. I came here Friday morning, and they run you through come talk to you guys. I go up with Beelan, talk with him about, whatever it was, get introduced to Coach and Brandon Bean and obviously Marty and all those guys, McDermott. And then I remember walking through the locker room and Cam was there for whatever reason. He said, hey, he's like, I'll give you a call later. We'll go get something to eat. I was like, great. So I get back to the hotel, kind of doing my thing. Cam calls me, he said, hey, come on down. I'll come pick you up. We'll go get something to eat. So I was staying at the West End, so they have that little turnaround, like a circle drive in there. So I'm waiting out front. I'm out there and a red Ferrari pulls up. And so it was dark out. It was nighttime. So it stops. They can clearly see it's like I'm the only person out there. So they pull up. I look in the front. It's kind of tinted, but you can tell there's like a big presence in there, like a big body.
Yeah.
So I try to open the car door and think it's Cam, and it's not opening. And then you can hear, when a car goes in park, you can hear it, and then the click, lock, whatever. Yeah. I opened the door up and I look in, and it was Michael Jordan. So I was like, I'm going to take my chance. I reach in and said, hey, I'm Luke. He said, I'm Michael. I'm like, I know who you are. And he's like, hey, are you waiting for Cam? And I was like, yeah. He's like, he's pulling in. So Cam pulls in literally right behind Michael. I jump in the car with Cam, and I'm like, that was Michael Jordan. He's like, I know. I was like, oh my gosh. So we ended up at Selwyn Pub. And
Jordan, this was prearranged. Jordan was coming with you all the way.
I think him and Cam lived in the same building or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So we ended up at Selwyn Pub, and I didn't really say a whole lot at dinner. And that little back area in Selwyn, when you walk in, you turn left, it's in the back.
Yeah.
We were back
That's where
there.
Michael would always go, I think. He wouldn't get bothered there. Right?
Yeah. And I loved the draft. So I just sat there in the corner, and they had the draft on the TV, and so I watched the next couple rounds on TV. It was perfect.
That's a pretty nice night. So Cam, he was the yin to your yang. Y'all were different people, but in a lot of ways complemented each other in a way that is pretty extraordinary. Tell me about your relationship with him.
So I met Cam when I was training for the combine at IMG. So I loved playing with Cam. I think all the guys that played with him would say the same thing. He was tough. He was competitive. He never threw guys under the bus. He never got mad at guys. And his toughness to me was one thing that you just never questioned with him. He was always having fun. That smile he had, there were some times you just want to be like wake up. And then he'd poke a smile at you and be like, okay, it's going to be okay. Yeah. So I loved playing with him. He was such great energy. He's fun to be around, unique. On Thursdays during the season, he'd always order food. He'd order tons of food, and they'd have it in the quarterback room. And we'd always go in there after meetings, after like practice and meetings were done. And we'd always go in there. He'd have like DA and Joe Webb, and Greg would be in there sometimes, and whoever else. But it was Thursdays. We'd always have Thursday tacos in the quarterback room with Cam. And it's all those stupid things that seem trivial are the things that you really miss. But yeah, Cam was just so competitive. I loved playing with him. Never threw guys under the bus, and just brought energy and passion. And watching him play out there is like, man, I got a lot of energy from watching other guys play, and watching Cam get hit and get right back up and run through guys, and just general passion and excitement for the game of football. It's like you feel like you want to match that.
What's the best play you ever saw him make?
There's so many times that I can remember near the goal line or on fourth down, especially near the goal line, of him. We'd run quarterback power, Tolbert would block, we'd pull a guy around, and Cam would just run through everyone, and he'd have the ball, and he'd have it out over the end zone line, over the goal line, and it's like the ball was glued to his hand. And I don't know how the ball didn't ever come out of his hand. Yeah. It's like it was glued, that big mitt on that football, and he wasn't letting it go. The first thing I can think of right now is I look out at the field right now. In the NFC Championship game, we ran like a sweep play to our sideline, to that end zone, and he ran and jumped over Ryan Khalil.
Good.
Do you remember that play?
Not really. Not exactly.
The NFC Championship game, we were like on the 25-yard line, and they ran a sweep play to the right side, and he was running, and he just kind of jumped over everybody, and it's like, can't just run in, but like you gotta. It's just he's so big, and how he moved. And there was a play against the Vikings. I don't know what year it was, 2014. Where it's like he just runs away from everyone, and how big and fast and his stride length, but him at the goal line, just running through people, holding the ball over the goal line.
2nd and 5. Newton, wide open. Newton, inside the 40, inside the 20, and then has it all the way to the 6 as Waynes tried to strip it away.
And then the one, there's a million plays that I can think of, but the one I can think of right now, there's 2 of them of him scoring touchdowns. One was when he jumped over Ryan, and the other one was in this end zone, same year, 2015 against the Texans, where he just jumped over, he got flipped and landed on his knee, and it was like he did it on purpose.
Stewart in the backfield. Newton on the quarterback draw, diving into the end zone for the touchdown.
The somersault. I do remember that one because I remember gasping. It looked like he was going to hit his head.
I don't know.
And it was like like something you'd see in the Olympics or something. Yeah.
We'll be back right after this.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Help! Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Welcome back.
Speaking of Greg, so that's an interesting relationship because it's offense and defense, and you guys obviously still have something going today. A lot of coaching that I want to ask you about too. But what was he like as a teammate, and in those years, those glory years?
Play clock winding down. They get the play off. Newton steps up, throws for the end zone. Olsen, touchdown!
Oh, the best. I mean, Greg, obviously a great football player, but just him and Kara are awesome. What they do off the field, how their kids are, their families, what they do for the community. I've done Christmas at their house. They're just the best people. Like, they take you under their wing. It's like you're their family. They treat you just the best. They're so generous with everything that they do. And Greg was really good for me in the sense of a lot of things. But one thing that was great for me was he was so good in the off-season training-wise. And that was one thing that I needed to learn how to do, was how to train in the off-season. So my first year, I went back to school, so that was my first off-season. My second off-season going into year 3 was, I think I was back in Cincinnati. And then going into year 4, I just started training here. And Greg's like, dude, just come train with me. It'll be awesome. And he took me under his wing and showed me, this is what I do. This is why I do it. This is my speed work. This is my footwork. This is my neuro stuff. This is how I get faster. This is how I get stronger on the field. This is my weight program. I'd love to have you around for it. And so a lot of it was just, that's who they are. Like Greg and Kara, like they want to help as much as they can. I think my time in Carolina, the commonality and the thing that helped me the most were the people that were here. So obviously Greg, phenomenal football player, great teammate, great leader on our team, but just a great person that took a lot of people under his wing, especially me when I was young, and just helped me learn how to be a football player.
Tell me about coaching with him now, and how long I know you've done that a while now. How does that work, and what have I know it's something to do with Greg's children, right?
Yeah. So Greg has three kids. Tate's the oldest. Tate plays football, so we started coaching them 2 years ago. Pop Warner. So Pop Warner was I think it was 11U and then 12U. So when Tate was on the 11U team, we coached that team. Greg was the coach. Josh Pate was our head coach that year. So it was And then Greg's dad's a phenomenal football coach. He coached in Jersey for forever, won numerous state championships. I think he won over 50 games in a row at one point. He came down, he lives here now. So we coached Pop Warner for 2 years, and this past year we coached at Charlotte Christian. So Tate got into, he's in 7th grade now, so he's in middle school. So he wanted to coach with the play with the middle school guys. And so Greg's the head coach there. Greg's dad's the offensive coordinator. Stu's there now.
Yeah.
We got Stu and then Todd Blackledge. So, but Greg with those kids is exactly how he was as a player. Just all in. He's so good with them. He pours his heart and his time and everything into those kids. And it's so cool for me to watch, because at the beginning of the year, the kids are trying to figure out, like, what is going on.
Yeah, because he's tough too. And his dad was too. I know he's told me that.
He's very fair.
Yeah.
And he's consistent. So there's no ups and downs. He's consistent. And I think being consistent in football is really big, because it's doing it right every time. You coach Greg does a lot with the offensive line. So if you're supposed to step with the right foot, we need you to step with the right foot. If you don't step with the right foot, he's going to, why do we step with the right foot? Boom, that's why we need to do it. Next time we got to do it correctly. If you step with the right foot, you make a great block, the first person that's going to say good job is Greg. The cool part is by the end of the year, the kids love him because he has their back. He makes them better. He has a ton of fun with them. We've been really good the last couple of years. And I think they all see their different kids from when they get here to when they leave at the end of the season. And the kids now are, they're 7th and 8th grade. They're young men, and they're figuring out kind of life. And Greg is a great teacher, not only of football, but of life for these kids. And the impact that he has on them is awesome.
And you're the defensive coordinator.
Greg and I coach defense together. It's great. We have a lot of
What's your style? What's the Luke Kuechly style?
I just talk to them. I think most of these kids that we coach, they all want to be good, and they all want to do the right thing, and they all want to have opportunities to play. So I think most of our kids never intend to make mistakes, and they don't make mistakes because they're lazy or they're not paying attention. It's just like us when we were playing. Sometimes you just have a play that you would like to have back, so I just talk to them. That's how I like being as a player. If I made a mistake, just talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what I need to do better. I don't need to get yelled at. I don't need to get screamed at. My motivation came from inside in myself and not wanting to let anyone else down, and I wanted to be good. And I think a lot of the kids that we have are like that. So that's kind of my approach is I just want to talk to the kids. Hey, think about this, do that. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? I love it when they not talk back sounds bad, but when they talk back to you, they give you feedback from their perspective because it gives you a different way to look at it. So I enjoy talking with the kids. They're fantastic, and we're pumped for next year.
Everyone's always called you a coach on the field when you played, which shouldn't diminish your athletic ability, which was tremendous too, but you were a very cerebral player. So I've always thought you'd be a great NFL head coach for that matter. Is that something that appeals to you?
I love the game of football. I love being on the sideline pregame. I love the guys. I'm not sure if I'm ready for the time associated with those coaches. I give those guys a lot of credit. I give their families a lot of credit. I'm just not quite at that point in my life where I'm ready to dive back into that level.
What does keep you busy now? What do you enjoy?
The radio is super fun. I love Jake. I love Anish. David Langdon, our producer's the nicest person, best person in the world. So we have a ton of fun with that because you can go travel on the team plane, and I get to be on the sideline, and I get to be a homer for the Panthers. And to me, it's the closest thing that I can get to playing. So, and I love the team. I love the organization. I love the city. I love all the guys in the team. But I mean, we go to Germany, and that was awesome. But the stuff that I miss is, flying the games and being on the bus and being on the field pregame. And so this is just a great opportunity to do that.
What do you miss most about the physical part of playing, or the I don't know, maybe it's not the game itself. I don't know. What do you miss most?
I think you miss like the locker room and the traveling and that stuff. I don't think that you can replicate that anywhere else. I loved the schedule of the season, from busy during the season, the off season, all I get to do is wake up, work out, train. Yeah. Good. That's my job, which is awesome. I loved I miss the to compete. I miss seeing each week who's better. Am I prepared? Did I prepare well enough for the week? Did I prepare enough during the off season? How tough was I during the day? Did I help my team win? Did I make any plays? Did I do my job? Did I get better from an area maybe I struggled in the previous week or the previous season? That on the field is what I miss, the ability to compete at a high level and be part of a team that everybody's got to do their job.
We'll be back right after this.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Welcome back.
Preparing for this, I rewatched your retirement speech that you gave that the Panthers put out. And it was sad. I mean, it was sad all over again watching it. And you were obviously emotional when you were giving that.
You know, there's only one way to play this game since I was a little kid is to play fast and play physical and play strong. And at this point, I don't know if I'm able to do that anymore. And that's the part that is the most difficult. I still want to play, but I don't think it's the right decision. So I've thought about it for a long time, and I think now is an opportunity for me to step away with what's going on here. I think we've got a really good linebacker room. I think Shaq and those guys are going to step and do a tremendous job.
So that was
5 years ago, huh?
Luke,
it was January.
5 years ago?
It was January, I think, of 2020,
it was almost
right?
5 years ago.
Yeah, no.
Wow. Does it seem that long ago? I mean, you've been out of the game for a while.
Yeah, I know, it stinks, but
even then you were saying, you know, you really wanted to keep playing, but you knew it wasn't the right decision. And why was that?
I just knew, I think I was getting banged up. I had some stuff pop up that just kept rearing its head. And I'm like, you know what? I wasn't capable of playing how I wanted to. I think mentally, when you decide you can't play at the level that you believe your job requires, I think I wasn't going to be able to play like 75%. And in my mind and mentally, I was like, man, I can't do it anymore. And I thought that if I wasn't 100%, I wasn't doing my job how people expected me to do it. And I was like, this isn't fair. It's not fair for the guys in the team. It's not fair to the organization. It's not fair to the fans. And it's not fair to, you know, me to expect to be playing at a level that I know I can't play at. And I think it was a very difficult decision, but I think once I knew, I knew. So it's a bummer. Like, I love football. It brings me so much joy, and it's the best job in the world. You know, it's so fun. You're around your buds. You get to play a game. You get to compete. Everything I like doing revolves around football, from, you know, training and eating well and studying and preparation and doing my job to help a team win. That's why it was difficult, because it's like, well, I can still go at like 75, 80%. But I knew that that's just, I wasn't capable of playing how I wanted to. And I think the moment that happened, it's like you have to make a difficult decision, but it was an easy, difficult decision, if that makes sense.
And so from what you're saying there, how much of that is concussion related?
I think some of it was. I had some other stuff that was bugging me, but I think it was just a little bit of kind of everything.
But Luke Kuechly at 75 or 80%, you could be playing today. I'm sure you're only 33 even now.
Oh, yeah. Right? I mean, I thought, so for the first couple of years, I was like, I can still play. Yeah. And then
Did you ever sort of think, like do a Gronk and, I'm retired, no, I'm not retired?
No, I think the first couple of years, you're like, I can still play. And then you go out there in the field before the game yesterday and you're like, nah. I saw Tristan Wirfs and I was like, I'm probably all right. I'm probably good. He came up and said hi to me and I was like, I looked at Jake and I'm like, dude, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Do you still weigh the same as when you played?
I'm probably down 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is good. I don't think
that's
you eat
good.
as much. Which is great.
Did you have to sort of keep on weight?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to keep it on. You got to lift more. You got to eat more. And now it's nice to not have to worry about that as much.
What do you do now for physical activity?
I like being active. I love to lift weights. I love being outside. I got to find creative ways to get cardio in because that's not necessarily my favorite, but I know it's good for me. I'm happier when I'm able to do that. So I just got to get it creative with that kind of stuff.
Weren't you an outdoorsman of the hunting and fishing variety?
Yeah, I love being outside. I grew up hunting and fishing. I love to bow hunt. That's one of my favorite things.
Where do you go to do that?
I've kind of been I love to deer hunt. So you can do it around here. You can go in the Midwest. You can go to Illinois, Kansas. Texas is a great place. And then out west is elk. Elk is early September. That's Montana, New Mexico are really cool areas. But it kind of, the Western stuff is very, you have to train for it. And you don't have to, but if you want to be at peak performance, you got to be able to walk and carry a backpack and walk up and down these, mountains. You have to be able to shoot. You got to be able to make an ethical shot. You have to be able to calm your heart rate down when you climb up a hill and you're excited and you see something. You got to be able to calm yourself down and relax and make a good shot. And the bow, I think for me, is very relaxing. It's calming. It's outside. It's you, and you make a bad shot, it's on you. It's fun to make corrections. It's probably similar to people with golf. But I have a bunch of buddies. My brothers hunt. My dad's a big hunter. I've been on trips with him. So to me, it's a great opportunity to be outside. It's a great opportunity to train for something. You can see your flaws if you're not ready to go. You can make a bad shot and your hunt's over. You can be out of shape and not be able to get to that animal. And your opportunities are few when you get out there, so you want to make them count.
A little bit like what you're talking about with those plays. You only get one that perfect formation.
You better make
time,
it,
right?
You better make it happen.
Are you going to pursue broadcasting beyond this? I'm sure you'd be a great studio or do what Olsen does now. Is that something you're interested in?
I think you got to try to figure out, what do you enjoy?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm trying to figure out. I enjoy what I'm doing right now, and it's fun, and you got your little squad up there, and I'm part of the team still.
Right,
so
still
I enjoy that a lot. I'm like what I'm doing. They haven't told me to leave yet, so
but
far,
you don't necessarily want to go fly off and do some game in California Saturday or whatever, like Anish does. For instance, you're a play-by-play guy.
That guy's he's impressive.
He's really good, but what a travel schedule.
Travel schedule's crazy. So I don't know. We'll see. See what happens.
And so tell me, you've seen Bryce Young a ton of times now. Does he have what it takes, do you think, to be an NFL franchise quarterback?
Yeah, I think the one of the best things that I think Bryce has going for him right now, I think he's been very resilient since he's been here. I mean, last year he had multiple coordinators, and Frank Reich gets fired midseason, and he's getting hit a ton, and we're kind of in flux on the offensive side of the ball. Both, up front, we had different receivers. There was a lot that got thrown at him, and all he kept doing last year was kept getting back up. He got 62 times he got sacked, and all he ever did was get up. All he ever did was run off the field. All he ever did was stand in front of the team and the media and talk about how I'm going to get better. And then this year, obviously, struggled to start the season, and they sit him down. He wasn't hurt, and there's nothing wrong with him. They sat him down. Andy came in and played. Then Bryce gets his opportunity, and I think he's really started to show like what we saw in him at Alabama. When you watch him play, he looks like he's having so much more fun. And half the battle with football is when it's not fun, it's terrible. When it's not fun, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. When things are fun and you're having fun, you play better. And so do I think he has the opportunity? I think Canales nailed it a couple weeks ago and said, we're going to worry about like just right now. But Bryce, his mental makeup and his toughness and his ability to just kind of be resilient these last year and a half, I think has just shown who he is as a person. And I think that's a huge step for this team moving forward.
And the last thing I'll ask you is just about Canales. Mm-hmm. Do you think he's the kind of guy who can get the Panthers back to a place where they haven't been now for a long time?
Yeah, I think he's very consistent. And I think consistency is huge because that way guys know what to expect. They know what's your mood going to be, what's your expectation of us, what do you want us to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think he's very positive. And when you're struggling, that's super important. Being consistent, being positive, having a strong message. But I think he has a really good ability to I'm not in meetings, but be very honest with the guys, but also they don't feel like they're being attacked. You got to address them, and if you address them in a positive, professional way, and you're not attacking guys, you think Chuba meant no, and Canales understands that guys are here to win football games, especially a guy like Chuba. He is a huge piece to our team that I think we're very lucky to have him. And if we could clone 50 plus Chubas, we'd be rolling. But I think his ability to be consistent, positive, able to be honest with the guys, I think we've gotten much better this year as a team. I like him a lot. I'm excited for kind of what we got moving forward.
That's Luke Kuechly. I'm Scott Fowler. Luke, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is Sports Legends of the Carolinas. Join us next time.
Thanks so much for listening to Sports Legends of the Carolinas, a production of the Charlotte Observer. This show is produced by Lume Ali Sally, Jeff Seiner, and Cotta Stevens. The sports editor of the Charlotte Observer is Lydia Craver. The executive editor is Raina Cash. If you know a sports fan, we've got a great gift idea for you. We've compiled the first 2 seasons of the Sports Legends interviews into a coffee table book, which includes more than 100 rare photos. Among the 33 legends in the book are Steph Curry, Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Steve Spurrier, Jake Delhomme, and Dawn Staley. The first printing sold out quickly, but the book is back in stock now, and you can order a copy at sportslegendsbook.com. For lots more sports content, please visit charlotteobserver.com and consider a digital subscription. You can connect with me, Scott Fowler, by email at sfowler@charlotteobserver.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review the Sports Legends of the Carolinas podcast. Thanks for spending some time with us, and we'll see you next time.